If you live your internal world externally as best you can, you have a much better chance of having more vitality, more juice, more life in your life. Hello friends, John Dalton here, Further Emergence podcast, where we go into love, consciousness and the mystery. And in this episode we're going into the wisdom of nature, accepting our multiplicity, and infusing our life with vitality. Okay, this is in response to the meme that says teaching a child not to step on a caterpillar is as important to the caterpillar as it is to the child. Somebody left this comment. They said, I agree, but what about the plague of grasshoppers in my garden that are eating everything? No natural predators, eating everything. I'm conflicted. I think I'm enlightened, yet I've been wiping them out. Interesting how being a warden of a land means a bit of death. Could it be that finding a balance means stomping out some opposing forces? Still figuring it out. So, I am standing in front of a field. A lovely green field, or what we think of green field. Now, let me just back up for a minute. As you may know, I am from the suburbs, okay? I am from the north side of Dublin. I grew up in a semi-detached house with a longish garden and no clue about nature. My family had no clue about nature. Nobody. We did not come from agricultural stock at all. So no idea about nature. All we had ideas was about grass and hedges and stuff like that. So from that suburban perspective, this field, let me give you a better look. It looks great. Okay. So what I've learned, now I've been living in nature, in this wild nature for a long time, over 10 years. And it's not the first time I've lived in wild nature. I still haven't a clue about nature, but I've sort of made it my business to learn a bit more about it. And I've learned that that's not natural. That field is not natural. Those mountains over there, they're not natural. They look beautiful, but they should have trees on them. Okay? That field over there, lovely, beautiful green field, not natural. So first thing I'd say is the main reason you're having trouble with the grasshoppers is the idea of a garden. As soon as you want to have a garden, you're in trouble. Or not you're in trouble, but you're in conflict with nature, because nature doesn't want to have a garden. Nature wants to do its thing. And this idea of no natural predators, that's not true. There are natural predators, but there'll be a problem because a species is introduced, for example. Like in Ireland, we have deer. They're gorgeous. Sika deer. They're lovely. They're so cute. I love seeing them. But they're out of control here, particularly down where I am, Kerry. There's too many of them. And they don't have any natural predators. Similarly, rhododendron. Beautiful, lovely, fantastic flowers. They don't have any natural predators either. So they're out of control as well. And that's because they were introduced. Okay, it's an introduced species. Somebody had the bright idea of, let's plant a rhododendron. Or let's have some deer, because they probably wanted to hunt them. Now they're out of control. They did the same thing in Australia with rabbits. And the mountains are like that here in Ireland, are bald because of sheep. Sheep are so part of the whole Irish thing, like the picture of the lovely green field with the sheep on it. you think, oh, that's nature, is it? And compared to a city, yes, it is. It is very much more natural than compared to a city, but it's still not natural. So, firstly, you have to, I think, accept the fact that the reason you're having problems in your garden is not because of nature being out of control. It's because we're out of control. We want gardens. We want lawns. A lawn is probably the most unnatural thing you could have. So when you think about proliferation of a species, I think it's probably helpful to think about it as, how would you like if where we are now on what's called planet Earth is, if that was somebody else's garden, they would be looking at it going, oh wow, the humans are out of control, they've got no natural predators. I mean, they sort of fight among themselves a lot, but they've got out of control. How would you like us to be dealt with? That's a good place to start with when you're thinking about, how do I deal with other species. The other thing is eating meat and, eating animals. It colors your view on how to deal with things. It makes killing them easier, a lot easier. You don't even think about it as much. When you don't eat animals, you suddenly become a bit softer to them. So that's something to consider as well. I got a lot of information from two people. One of them is called Owen Daltoon, no relation as far as I know. He actually lives not too far from where I do on this peninsula, just much further down. And he's rewilded a good few acres of land and has written a book called The Irish Atlantic Rainforest. Very good book. Very highly recommended to sort of begin to get your head around this way of thinking. Owen Dalton. I'll put a little link, or maybe I'll put a little picture of the book up. It's very good. Highly recommend it. And he's very active on Twitter, I think, Owen is. And then the other person is Mary Reynolds, who I mentioned before on the podcast. And Mary started off as an award-winning landscape gardener. Like, she won whatever the big one in the UK is, the Chelsea Flower Show. She won that one year. Apparently they have a competition, and when she was very young, like 24, 25, something like that. Not that 24, 25 is very young, but it's very young to win the Chelsea Flower Show. Normally they're in their 50s. Anyway, she won that and had a bright future ahead of her as a landscape gardener, but then began to kind of go, I don't think this is great. She began to, realize that she wasn't really going with nature. She was imposing her will on nature and confining it and just confining all the wildness out of it. So she's written 2 books. Both are lovely. Both are chronological. The first one, which his name I can't remember right now, is more before she really got into the wilding and rewilding. And then the second one is she's fully into it. But she started a movement called ARK, A-R-K. And that stands for Acts of Restorative Kindness. And similar to Owen, it's quite easy when you get into nature, like when that's your focus in life, you can you see all these things that we're doing that are crazy. Like the forests here. Is there one around? There's a few of them. You can see them over there. Some of those forests, they look lovely, but they're not natural. They're all the same species. And when you walk in among them, it's dead. It's just dead in there. It's like the Twilight Zone in one of those pine forests. In the countries where they are natural, it's not as much. But when they're planted like that, they're awful. And you know, like from a numbers point of view, it's like, oh yeah, more trees, that's good. And people like Owen and Mary are going, it's not just any old trees, you know, it's part of a bigger thing. You know, you can't just throw trees at it. You have to like include the whole picture, you know. So it's very easy to get upset. And both Owen and Mary are upset. So if you follow them on social media, you can see that. They're just frustrated, you know. So this ARC thing that Mary started, she got sick of waiting for government, the government of Ireland, but just governments in general, to get with the program, to start doing the right thing for nature, not just what looks good. So her idea was, well, like, there's no point waiting for legislative change. Let's keep lobbying for it. Let's keep, you know, focused on it, but let's get going now. And she started this idea. It's a beautiful idea of you let your garden return to nature. You let it go wild. And you put a sign on the front of it called, with ARC written on it. Like, this garden is a island of natural growth, of natural, like the natural expression of nature. This garden, it's not wild. I'm not lazy. I haven't just stopped mowing the lawn. I'm doing this consciously, and it has ARC written on it. And you know, she's got templates on the website to do that. And her idea is to cultivate pockets of wildness around the world, and to create a patchwork of these pockets of and islands of wild nature. And that if we all start doing it, if we all start turning our gardens over to nature, or not turning them over, giving them back to nature and letting nature express and breathe a little bit, that we can create spaces for all the little insects and all the wildlife that are, you know, being mowed out of the, you know, harried out of all the places that they can be and have their little lives, you know. So highly recommend Mary's work, ARC. I don't know the website, but I'll put it on the screen if I can, or I'll put it in the show notes. And Owen's work as well, and his Twitter handle. So I understand that grasshoppers are eating your garden and there's no natural predators, and I know that's difficult, and don't think about getting another predator to come in, which is what usually happens, and then, you know, then there's no natural predator for that. Oh, I'll get something in that eats grasshoppers, and then there's nothing that eats the thing that eats the grasshoppers. It's coming back to you know, this idea of imposing your will on nature and thinking we know better than nature, and trying to beat it into shape. We do it in the garden, we do it in our bodies, we do it everywhere, and it's not really working on all fronts. Doesn't really work in the body, doesn't really work in nature. We think we're great, and we are. Like, we do amazing stuff, but there's so much inherent wisdom in nature where it just knows how to get on with things. And if we sit back and observe it, we can learn a lot more than we can, you know, dominate. So yeah, no simple answer there. No, it's nice to have the lovely garden, and when you see the grasshoppers eating everything, it's disturbing. But if you can kind of see the bigger picture, it makes it a bit easier. You can let go of the idea of having a garden, even better. You can let it go back to nature, and that's even better. Now let's have a look at one of the memes on the Further Emergence Instagram feed. This is a sort of a poem by Hannah Napier Rosenberg, and it's called Until I Thought of Myself as the Sea. I used to separate good days from bad until I thought of myself as an ocean. I used to split times I felt strong from when I felt weak until I imagined myself as the sea, calm and rocky, wild and soft, still and powerful, and vast and more than any one thing. In the ocean, it's hard to divorce one mood from another, one wave from the next. Now, on my worst days, I think of how good life is too, how I can still greet joy while swimming through grief, how fragile strength feels, how I'm not any one thing in any one moment on any one day. I'm all of it, and all of it is me. It's a great analogy. It's a lovely little bit of poetry. And it sums up one of the most difficult things to get in the life and consciousness and the spiritual life. And that's this thing of we are many things all at the same time. It's one of the things people like have an issue with to do with enlightenment, when it comes up that I'm enlightened, and they kind of like, yeah, but you were unhappy, you were suicidal at one point, and you were this and you were that. And I'm like, yep. And they're like, but how can you be that and enlightened? And it's like, well, it's the same thing. It's like it all happens at the same time. It's all part of the same thing. We're many things all at the same time. And what our mind likes to do is go, no, I'm just this one thing. Just wants a bit of sort of solidity, wants a bit of not having to deal with the complexity of, just wants black and white. And of course, it's not like that. It's gray. Multiple shades of different things. We're all many things. And you can love someone and have very, dark feelings towards them at the same time. You can be very happy and very sad all at the same time, and it's all fine. But we're kind of like, we feel like I'm either one thing or I'm the other thing. I can't be both these things. And of course we can, and we are, but we make it wrong. We kind of go, no, I can't be happy at a funeral. I can't be sad at a birthday party. And of course, if it's in there, then it's happening. It's real. It's what's going on for you. So I really like this poem, this idea of the sea. Because it's easy to kind of go, yeah, it's all the sea, but some parts of it are bashing up against the rocks. Other parts are very calm. Other parts are little droplets. Other parts are mist. It's easy. It's easy to kind of think like that and think of the sea and go, yeah, of course, yeah, the sea. I'm not going to limit the sea, but we limit ourselves. We make ourselves wrong, and go, no, I can't be, I love my children, so I can't have, I can't resent them. Of course you can. It's not something you can. It's not like giving yourself permission, but it's giving yourself permission to be whatever you are. And to kind of know that we're multifaceted creatures on the inside. That's what makes us so interesting. And the more we allow these different parts of us to be and to exist, the more we are the sea then. And we can say lots of different things about the sea, but I think everybody agrees it's pretty powerful. And we are pretty powerful too. So if we can embrace who we are, embrace all the complexity and contradictions and paradoxes, the more you can embrace paradox and hold two opposing things at the same time, the more progress you make in your spiritual life and your conscious life. That's my experience anyway. The real difficulty, or you get into real trouble, or you put the brakes on yourself when it's like, no, I can only be one of these two things. And it's like, no, I can be both, or this can be the way this is both these things. It's great and it's awful. Holding it all. Be like the sea. Being like the sea of how can have it all, can be all of it, and it's fine. So as you know, or maybe you don't, I send out friendly notes every Sunday. And I usually include, they're kind of a roundup of what I've been doing for the week. So there's the podcast, and then there's also whatever writing I've done that week. And every now and then, the muse, the poetry muse kind of hits me, and I'm moved to write a poem. So now, just as an aside, if you want to get this top drawer kind of stuff in your inbox every Sunday, it's easy enough. You just go to the website, or you can just email me. It's john@furtheremergence.com, and I will put you on the list, and you'll get a friendly note from me every Sunday. I also, keep you up to date on the different trainings I'm doing and that kind of thing. So, last Sunday, I wrote a poem, and somebody asked me a question about it. So rather than just read the little bit, I thought maybe I'll just read the whole poem. So let me just get somewhere a little bit quieter so that you can hear me, and I'll read that, and then we'll come back here. The poem is called Stick With It. When you care so much that your heart never stops breaking, and the weight of love throbbing within you is a constant lump in the throat of your being, and there seems no way to live and feel this much, stick with it. When you can't unsee the worst of it all, and the past leans heavy on your valiant heart, and you are twitchy and bitchy and cruel, and you lash out and collapse in sorrow, stick with it. When you know, but no one else does or seem to care, and you see it all from so many angles that you are held in frantic paralysis, stick with it. When you are on your knees and you feel you can't take any more, stick with it. When you feel you are a small and insignificant part and that it's all happening out there, and how you feel about it and how you think about it doesn't make any difference and the world is not interested anyway, stick with it. When the pain is confusing, irrational and relentless, stick with it. When you feel like nothing is changing, stick with it. When the weight of neglect and sorrow and shame leads you to frozen indecision, stick with it. When every day is overwhelming and exhausting, stick with it. When you are unsure of everything and everyone, including yourself, stick with it. When you can't get off the couch, stick with it. Stick with it even though it feels hopeless. Hopeless, no more. Live your inner world externally as if your life depends on it, because it does. Stick with it like Velcro. Stick with it like a toddler to a mother's leg. Stick with it like peanut butter to a blanket. Stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. When your bigness is pushing you forward to jump off the cliff and fly, and you are not ready and you don't know how, stick with it. When it's all changing very fast and the magic is scary, stick with it. When the weight is lifted and you're not sure who you are without it, stick with it. Stick with it because you care, because you're here, because even though it seems meaningless, you know it's not. Stick with it for no reason, but stick with it. Pretend you have a choice and choose to stick with it. So, yeah. It's kind of a combination of my own experience and just my experience with one-to-one work and the sort of things that people go through. We just go through on this thing that we're all involved in of becoming more conscious, and how difficult it can be, and how to just stick with it. So this person says, "Hi John, nice poem. Could you elaborate more on this idea? Live your inner world externally as if your life depends on it, because it does." So that is to do with, it's kind of from the whole manifestation world of, or it's taking cues from the manifestation world, meaning, this thing of like this area of manifesting, which is usually associated with very practical material things like money, love. I know love isn't a very material thing, but finding your ideal partner, finding the work you want to do, all that kind of stuff. That's usually what manifestation is about or focused on. But that line refers to this idea that, like, why is existence so difficult? Why is it so hard? Like, one of the things that's so hard about existence, for me anyway, and I think for a lot of people, is that the external, or what feels external, I won't get sidetracked on that, external doesn't reflect what's inside. Left to my own devices, I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't want any animals to suffer. I don't want anything to suffer. And I wouldn't, not consciously anyway, inflict any suffering on anyone. I want everybody to have enough food. I want everyone to be happy, As I think it was, I can't remember who used to say this, some guy, it's a famous quote, or it's a quote I like anyway. He had a good name, but I just don't remember it. And it's this idea of what I want for myself, I want for everybody. And that's true. And yet, when I look out, people are doing awful things to each other. Terrible, terrible, terrible things that just break my heart. And what's so difficult about that is, like, this thing doesn't reflect me. This thing is not an expression of me. That's where the feeling of, like, alienness comes from. Meaning, we can feel like an alien in our own world. We can feel so strange and so out of place. And the sad thing is, everybody feels it to some degree. And, how can that be? How can we all be feeling like we don't fit into the same thing? So this idea of living your internal world externally means any chance you get, you express, or I express, what it's like inside. Anywhere I see it, I focus on it. Anywhere I can, I express it, both to myself, meaning inside me, and then also, to other people. And to not hold back and to not be afraid of being weird or anything like that. Just take my foot off the brake of expressing love, expressing kindness, expressing softness, gentleness, whatever's inside me. Putting that outside so that I can, live it. Live as if the outside is the same as the inside. That's where the manifestation bit comes in, because one of the things you have to do in manifestation is live the future you want now. You live in that future that you want now. You expect it. And that brings it closer to you. Because it's a neutral field, and it can just, in the kind of gamer analogy, the virtual reality analogy, it's all pixels. Pixels are neutral. They'll just do whatever. So what you charge the pixels with, what you charge the field with, is what it becomes. But it has to be done through repetition, because of the safety gap of time, meaning, if you think of a dragon, you don't want to drag it to appear. So while we're still figuring out how to do it and how to be focused in our intent, we have to do it repeatedly. So living your internal world, meaning the sweetness inside you, externally, living that all the time, and living it as if your life depended on it. What I mean by that is, you're not going to die. I don't mean it in that way. You're not going to die if you don't do this. But that's different to living or having life. It's this thing about, or it's the difference between just surviving and thriving. So if you don't do this, it sucks the life out of your life, and you're just living. You know about that. You know about just living. Anybody who commutes, anybody who, mostly commuting actually. Commute is it's a really good example of not living. or of having no life. You just, you can try and pad it out with beautiful audiobooks, nice music, maybe you meet somebody on the train or whatever. But there are those times when you're just sitting in the car, or you're just on the train or on the bus, and you just there's no vitality. There's no life. It's just living. It's just existing. So living your internal world externally as if your life depends on it means the life in your life, the vitality in your life, the juice, that's what I'm talking about. If you live your internal world externally as best you can, you have a much better chance of having more vitality, more juice, more life in your life. So that's where your life, the vitality, it depends on it. It depends on you doing that. So that's all tied up together in this line of live your life, live your internal life externally as if your life depends on it. It kind of gives the urgency to it, the importance to it. All right, that's all I have for you this time. I trust you're well. I trust you're of good cheer, and I'll talk to you again soon.